Assalamu alaikum, good evening, and Shabba Khair. Welcome to the first episode of Fine Leg. I'm Hassan Cheema, the strategy manager of Islamabad United. With me here, the guest today is what's the appropriate word? The former South African batsman, Colin Ingram. Have you officially retired from the South African team yet?
I haven't, but I think that ship has sailed. So I think probably more appropriate to say former South African player. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would disagree with that assessment, but like that's a topic for another day. We're here with you guys. I'm assuming you guys are as tired and completely like screwed in the mind as us with the coronavirus thing. And I hope, first of all, obviously, I hope that everyone's safe and whoever is suffering from it recovers from it. And our prayers go out to everyone. I don't think any of us in our lifetimes have seen stuff like this on a mass scale as has been happening. So best of luck to everyone. And with that out of the way, actually fulfilling other formalities, I want to ask Colin about the situation in South Africa as well, and if there's any way that we could help in that regard as well.
Yeah. Firstly, just to reiterate, I hope everyone stays well and healthy. I think, your state of mind is obviously something that you have a control over. So to create good daily routines, as we here in South Africa, we're fortunate we have maybe a little more space at stages, but we're using it as good family time at the moment. As it unfolds, I think more and more people will have to get involved and help other people. At the moment, I've been enjoying my holiday at home. I've been enjoying my family time, and just hoping everyone out there stays safe and in a good mind frame, because that's really important.
So yeah, I'll just second everything that Colin said. But for Pakistanis, I hope that everyone just stays safe. And I want to start off, Colin, by like the last 2 3 days we were together, like from like I think the 13th. I won't talk that much about the PSL because it seems a bit redundant to talk about the season where you finished last. But even otherwise, like the last 3 days, from like the 12th onwards, the first you heard of this situation going down as it was, then all of those meetings between the foreign players and the PCB, and then your decision to stay back for the final game. Like, what was your thought process through those 3 days?
Yeah, firstly, it was, everything was really new in that stage. The information we were getting through the media, especially, no one really understood exactly what was going on. So, my thoughts were, I came to Pakistan to play cricket, so I was going to try and hang in and play. I was committed to play as long as possible. At that stage, people were saying, which we know now is not as true, that, it's flu-like symptoms, and, most people are recovering. So for me, South Africa weren't exactly going to close their borders, and I came there to play cricket. So, I wanted to stay on and stay the course as long as I could until, at that stage, then we started, a few days after I left, we would have been forced to come home. So, for me, it was about keeping things simple, and cricket always comes first for me. So I spoke to my wife, and she said, there's not 2 days or 3 days or another 5 days, not really going to make too much difference. So, carry on doing what you're doing and try to do your best.
And I'm sure there was, and you just mentioned about like people talking about somebody having flu-like symptoms, and like even within the hotel there being this sort of thing. I think in that sort of thing, the one thing that I won't say we, but the PCB did really well was that the paranoia that was within, they dealt with that really well. They didn't allow it to like take over the whole team, essentially the whole league. But if anyone had any reservations, I don't think anyone was stopped for it, right?
No, not at all. I mean, I thought the information we received was really good, and our group was sort of really stuck together about it, and had some good discussions about staying as long as we could to keep playing and try and get us into the playoffs. But things kept developing in other countries, which was so the guys from the UK were getting different messages that they needed to get home, and so it was a tricky time for everyone. But I thought everyone tried to, or the PCB tried to get the tournament done. They even shortened it. In terms of the number of days players would have to be there, and they tried everything to make sure that everyone felt comfortable and happy, and there was open conversations. So I thought everyone dealt with it really well. It was a new one, as we know now. It's still spinning out of control, and no one really knows what's going on. So they did their best, and I think everyone appreciated that.
Yeah, sorry about that. I've been doing that before as well.
Okay.
Uh, my bad. Anyway, so let's just move on from like depressing topics, hopefully. Uh, so I want to ask you about like the one thing. Obviously, there's been a lot of questions in the comments and otherwise regarding Karachi Kings and Islamabad United and all that stuff. But I don't really want to talk about that. If the guys watching this still want like detailed discussion on that, please send your questions, and maybe at the end of the show we can have that discussion. But what I want to talk to Colin about, because he's probably one of the first true Kolpak superstars, and this is one of the things that cricket has really struggled with over the past 10-15 years, with like reconciling with it, the idea of someone which is particularly true for South African cricketers and West Indian cricketers, the idea of someone playing throughout the world, being a superstar throughout the world and not playing for their country. So
I'll just hang in and wait for Hassan's battery to recharge so that we can carry on. So everyone just hanging there with us. Apparently he's he's struggling with the technology. I thought that would be me, but we'll get back to the question now.
Yeah, so starting like a Sam, so really sorry about this. My just thumbs keep slipping. I'm not used to this. But anyway, regarding the callback thing, I wanted to ask you. I've had this discussion with Wayne Parnell and like other guys before. Like, what was your mindset behind that, and how do you like? Do you get frustrated with the idea of like when people talk to refer to callbacks as like sort of like mercenaries, and that's the word that is used.
I think where I would start is that on a broad scale, every different player sort of would do it for a different reason. If you look at each individual, they have their own reasons, and you can't clump it all into as one topic. I don't think, because each player would have a slightly different reason for what he's doing and why. Certainly for me in 2015, I had a good open discussion, with the powers in South Africa, and at that stage, my option to, instead of sitting on the couch for 6 months of the year in the winter, was to go and play county cricket and get more cricket under the belt. Because, I had done well in patches at international level, but I hadn't quite nailed it down. And they'd seen, I think, they'd seen that I could play there. If I could grow and develop my game, certainly county cricket, and with the amount of cricket that's played in a season there was something that was really good for me. So terms, and I don't think if you chatted to people around, no one would have any different way about it. I went on good terms. I wanted to go grow my game, and you know, for me, playing and developing has been the only way forward since I started my career at 21 or 22 years old. So it's never been about just sitting at home and hoping it happens. I've always tried to get out there as much as possible. And county cricket for me was a big one, because as I was growing up, my father's a cricket lover. A friend of mine's father had played, a guy called Kenneth McEwen, had played at Essex for years, and I always wanted to go and be part of this, very sort of club-orientated cricket environment. So it was the right time for me to go and do it. When I left, I always hoped that at some stage, I'd play really well and hopefully to get a phone call to come back to South Africa and carry on contributing there. But after about 2 or 3 really good seasons out there, whisper. So I think I moved on to what was next, and the next thing for me was to try and play some global cricket again and get back to, if not the international stage, but as close as possible with the T20 leagues, and that's where I bumped into teams like coming into the PSL like Karachi Kings and going to Adelaide Strikers. So that's kind of been the journey. It kind of just unfolded on its own, and I end up now sitting at close to 35 years old, really enjoying my cricket. And it's sad sometimes that I don't play international cricket, but I spend a lot of time with my family, and I get to pick where and when I get to play. So there have been other benefits that I've been really fortunate to enjoy.
And regarding the,
does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Regarding the second question, regarding like the money thing, do you guys like, because I will say this openly, prior to like joining Islamabad before PSL 1, however much I talk to cricketers and otherwise, there was still something in the back of my head regarding the idea of like, that someone who plays T20 leagues throughout the world there is like cricket has trained you to treat that person as sort of like a mercenary. But having worked with you guys, having worked with guys before you over the past like 4 or 5 years, what I've seen is like the guy who's an elite level sportsman, his competitive spirit is such that regardless of whether it's like an international game or it's a club game, he'll always play to his 100%. So considering that, do you get frustrated with the idea of someone's a mercenary or someone's here just for the money, or like that sort of thing which goes around as a narrative?
Yeah, I think it's quite weird, because when I started off my career, we based everything around 4-day cricket. It was about trying to play Test cricket. That was the the sort of the pinnacle of cricket, to play international Test cricket. And through my career, that's changed a lot. And there are different opportunities. I think when I started off my career, I only wanted to play a couple of years, whereas T20 cricket has created this where I could play a lot longer, still earn a good salary. And I think the cricket experience is still something I really enjoy. So to sort of answer your question, I certainly know that I'm fortunate in that I earn a good salary from cricket now, which 10 years ago wasn't even an option. You had to play IPLs and stuff like that. And, my game wasn't at that level at that stage. So I'm very fortunate in that, the cricket landscape's changed to create these monetary options that are nice. But I think for me, I still base my cricket around cricket, cricket experience and trying to be as good as or play as well as I can play. So, if I'm pitching up just thinking of a paycheck, cricket's too hard, I think, just to play like that. It's too hard a skill. You'll end up falling by the wayside quickly. Whereas, I want to be consistent. I want to make sure my stats are growing. And keep experiencing things. I mean, in the last couple of years, I've traveled all over the world, and that means I've met, more people, played in finals in other countries, played at great venues. I mean, even this year's PSL, to play at, cities that I had watched cricket, like in Lahore and Islamabad, or Pindi, those to watch. I had watched it, international Test cricket at those venues, to now go and play at them it's still a great experience. So it can frustrate me that people think you just play for money, but at the end of the day, it is more of an option to play as a job these days. It would be part of the world playing for free. So I think where we're fortunate is that you meet new people, you travel around the world, and that's that level for me is just below international cricket. So I'm fortunate to have those opportunities.
And you mentioned playing in Lahore, playing in Pindi and places like that. I mean, what was your experience like with those places? As you mentioned, you played throughout the world. You played the IPL for Delhi. You've been playing with Adelaide for a few years. You've been with Glamorgan for quite a while now. So considering that, what was the experience of playing in, especially in Pindi and Lahore, what it was like, because you hadn't played there before?
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about playing around the world is wherever you go, there's a slightly different cricket audience, so to speak. So you get to experience the game in a different way. I mean, it's very different playing, on a summer's evening at Glamorgan compared to maybe in the Caribbean to playing at Adelaide. And for me to come out to Pakistan and get to really experience, the proper crowds and the feeling of cricket, and obviously having the full PSL back there was really exciting for Pakistan as a nation, and to grow their cricketers. I mean, there'll be young guys in the crowd there watching. That might be some of their first T20s they've watched, live. So, the standard was really good, and it was, the Pakistani people are really excitable around cricket in general. So it was great to actually feel that as in full at last. And I certainly know I really, really enjoyed it. I wish we could have played probably slightly better when we were at Pindi. But
I wish Hassan had won a toss in Pindi.
It would have been nice as well. But I mean, in general, we had throughout the tournament around the country, so it was really fantastic.
Yeah. And you mentioned like T20 cricket and how it's developing. Earlier, you mentioned like your development as a player. What, like, from when you pretty much became like a T20 league player in like 2013, 14, you mentioned 2015 onwards. How have you like developed your game, and how have you seen the format develop? As in, how has it changed over the past 5, 6, 7 years?
I think firstly, to start off on my own game, when I went to the UK, there was this opportunity to play, I think it was 14 T20 Blast games in a season, which would be the most for me that I'd ever played in a season, and it was something that it really excited me. So when I went over there for the first couple of years, I had a really good go at it, and it went really well. So then I started thinking, okay, well, what's next? Where do I go? Because from there, the Big Bash was always a good one, because that's sort of right in the middle of a UK winter. And I thought to myself, when I watched this on TV for years, this looks like, in terms of the way it's marketed, just below an IPL and something like that. So maybe that's, attainable. I can try and get there. So I started training my T20 cricket different to how I'd used to. I try, and I spoke to some of the young guys out at Islamabad about this, but I try to see them as separate accounts, so separate skill sets, separate mindset, even to use a separate weighted bat, and try and separate my format. So I was playing, during the week at Glamorgan, I'd be playing a 4-day game, but then on a Friday evening, we'd have a T20. So to try and separate your skills and grow each sort of column a little bit differently. And I'd never done that before. I'd basically just practiced cricket as one format, all of it put together. And I think where the game's grown to is that you almost have specialists. It's exciting to see some of the guys who've played T20 from when they were 10 years old, because they play it with so much freedom. And watching it on high definition TV, I mean, the guys are making it look ridiculous at the moment. I watch quite a lot of cricket, obviously. I feel like that's almost like homework, like staying up to speed on, who's doing what and who's got a new delivery, and just a feel of what's going on around the world in terms of, because there is a lot of cricket on TV these days. But it amazes me, the shots people play, the deliveries guys are bowling, the catches taken. So I think in the last 5 years, we've started to see, the skill set go to the next level. So much so that if someone misses the ball now, we're like, oh, what's he doing? He's rubbish.
Yeah.
Like if I throw a tennis ball at any person from 5 yards away, that's what it feels like batting. And it's a really hard skill. And you've got guys lapping over the keeper, hitting balls out of stadiums. So, it's been really exciting just to see how the game's grown in the last 5 years. And I've definitely sort of just tried to, expand my game and get swept up in that and enjoy what it is. Because, like I said, I think the level has gone to sort of a new place completely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that I've noticed even over the past like 2, 3 years is like even the stuff that was considered like revolutionary in say the 2012 World T20, that's almost feels like that's the base requirement nowadays. Like that you have to do at least that much and then you build on from there, right?
No, I can remember when like we used to watch videos maybe even 10 years ago and be like, oh, or just to chat, oh yeah, he's got an off cutter. That would be a slow ball. Whereas now some of the bowlers have got 4 slow balls in an innings, or so I definitely feel that the skill set has grown really quickly. And also, like you set a field, and you're like, okay, well, we're going to bowl there to this guy, but the guys are growing their game so quickly that he couldn't hit over offside last year, but now he's hitting it for 6 there. So now you want to bowl leg stump, and he hits that for 6 as well. That it's become really tricky. I think the commentators need to just go with it a bit more as well, because there's a lot of that was a poor ball and this was a bad shot. But I think the levels that are at now are really tough on bowlers. And then the batters are playing. I mean, a winning score this year, say at the PSL, the wickets were really good. But a winning score is 180 plus. When I started even years ago, if you scored 145, you might win a couple of games. Whereas now 145, you might as well pack your kit and go home. So, the game has really got to an exciting level. And, I think even the crowds and how much following T20 cricket has got at the moment, it sort of shows that, because the stadiums are full and the entertainment is really good.
And you mentioned like a lot of the young guys coming through, and like they almost play cricket in a way which, I mean, you guys were almost trained out of. Was there anyone in particular in the PSL that you looked at and you were like, this is different gravy?
It's difficult to say. I don't like to signal out people, but I mean, for me, something like that was obviously right under my nose this year was someone like Shadab, who, all of a sudden we used in the batting lineup like really early, and was a tactical move. But the younger player of this day and age, someone like him there, he just went with it. Next minute, he's getting 70s. And, I think that's the exciting part. When I was that age, if someone had said, go bat 3 today, I'm probably like 10 of 10 and walk off think, I did okay today. It's like terrifying. Whereas the young players of today, they've grown up playing with this freedom and this expression from 10 years old, and they've watched it on TV. That I can only think in 10 years' time, where the game will be. It's really exciting. So I think looking at some of those guys coming through in the PSL, especially, it gives them this international sort of exposure, this tournament feel, and to go and do it in front of big crowds is really exciting.
Yeah, the thing with Shadab like almost for, I won't say 6 months, but probably 4 months prior to the PSL, almost once a week I'd have this conversation with him trying to convince me that he needs to bat in the top order. And obviously I was reluctant because we had you, we had Manas, we had Dronks, we eventually we were going to have Van der Dussen, we didn't have him, so we got Malan there. But he was just always insistent on that. He went to the BPL because his domestic team dropped him from the 4-day final here for some reason. And all he did in the BPL, he says, was he would have like an hour and a half just throwdowns every day, just working on his batting. And that really helped. But the guy that I sort of like really was taken aback by wasn't one of ours. It was Haider Ali, the Zalmi guy. I've seen like Indian batsmen sort of play like that, or South African, like you look at somebody like Janaman Malan or somebody like that who are coming through. But I haven't seen Pakistani guys who just play like that, who just come in and can hit a 6-over mid-wicket the first ball of their innings, right?
He would have been second on the list for me. I mean, I mentioned Shadab because he was under my nose, and I felt his leadership was really good. But to watch someone from another team, like I don't even think he started the first few games.
I think he missed the first 1 or 2 games, might have.
And then once he came in, it just looked real natural. And I think, obviously by the amount of runs he scored in the tournament by the end, he was up there. And it shows, it wasn't just a once-off, come out, do it once or twice. And I think that's exciting because through my 3 years at the PSL, there's obviously, everyone always talks about the bowling because, won't face 3 or more guys bowling 140 k's an hour in one team, whereas almost every team has that at the PSL. So, a lot of people talk up the bowling. So I think it's exciting that, there will be a couple more batsmen coming through in the next few years. And that's why I say I think it's important that the tournament is played in Pakistan. So you got guys who come to the stadium and they see this level. They watch the highlights another 20 times on the TV. and they go and do it. So, when they come in the next few years, this is the type of thing, hopefully, people can expect.
Yeah, I mean it's also like I'm sure having Kamran Akmal or having Hashim Amla, especially in the dressing room, didn't help, didn't hinder either. I mean, imagine if you played your first class season, and at the end of that you had Hashim Amla, a 40-year-old Amla with you in the dressing room. Like, I'm sure the development of some guy like that would be extraordinary, as in it would be accelerated so far.
Oh, massively. And I think that's where the tournament's really cool. By the way, I think I benefited from having Nashimanda, and I was standing at the other end batting with him, and I still learned so much. So, just to have guys like that around the young guys at the tournament is really important and awesome to see. Hash is a legend, and the amount of knowledge that he will pass on really quickly because of his nature and how good he is with people. Pakistani cricket can feel really lucky to have a guy like him traveling there for the full tournament.
Yeah. Someone just sent in the question. Sorry, I missed your name. The question was that what was your favorite ground to play in Pakistan? It's from Adina Khurram. I think that's Adina. I haven't heard that name before, but what was your favorite ground to play on in Pakistan?
Oh, for me, it was to play in Pindi. I think it's a beautiful city, a lot of greenery. It reminded me, with the mountains in the background. But just to play on that wicket with that outfield, I think I enjoyed probably my best innings there as well. It's a terrific wicket to play on. Like, coming as an overseas player, everyone talks about how the ball's going to spin and this, but the wickets were really good at most of the stadiums. But for me, that sort of like that bowl feel of the stadium, and how loud it got in the evening. The only thing was a pity we didn't play as well there as maybe we could have.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't we weren't fair to our fans in Pindi. I thought we had a lot of really good support at the start of every game, and by the end, that wasn't really the case there. But
that's the nature of sport.
Yeah, that's the nature of like fandom these days. To finish off, I just wanted to. I mean, you've been with the PSL for like 3-4 years. You're not like engaged to the PCB as such, and considering that, as you said, you are pretty much a former South African player, you're also like not really engaged with the cricket South African community as well. So I wanted to ask you. I mean, I sent you this WhatsApp. Like, I want to discuss this because this is one of the things that is sort of a misconception throughout the world. Wherever like fans are, especially say in Pakistan, they think of their cricket board, as somehow being uniquely incompetent compared to everyone else. So I wanted to ask you about like you've worked with so many cricket boards throughout the world, and do you think there is that much of a difference between them, and like what is it? Is there anything that those guys can do better than what they currently are doing?
It's always a tricky question, to be honest. But I see a lot of similarities. I think that's probably what you're alluding to when we chatted. A lot of similarities, with South Africa and Pakistan, in that they've had great teams in the past. They're great talents individually. Don't always manage to, get all of it together and make sure that you have a sustained sort of success over a period of time. And I think it's frustrating for fans. I know it's frustrating for fans here in South Africa. It's frustrating for fans when the board gets it wrong in Pakistan as well. So I always feel that there's probably more things in common between South Africa and Pakistan than we probably realize. Not just the green color. As far as boards go, I'm a big one for I want guys to be taken care of from a young age and create an excitement in sport. When a board lets you down at a professional level, at an international level, that pride gets dented, and I think that's what people really get upset about. When you're very fortunate in that you have a massive following around the world. If a game's been played or in Birmingham at Edgbaston, it feels like a home game. If you play in Sydney, Pakistani support is massive for their team. And I think people want to see consistency in selection, in fairness of how people are treated. And in that way, you create a stable environment. I think it's brilliant to have a guy like Misbah involved. He's a stable person, and he caught a lot of flack during our campaign, which I thought was uncalled for. I think he's still learning T20 cricket, like some of the older players are, but he's a great man manager, and I think that's important for countries like South Africa and in Pakistan. You need people who can manage people and look after people well and make them feel valued. And Misbah certainly had that. In South Africa, we're in a transition phase, I think, with our team, in that they're trying to create the same thing that I'm talking about in terms of getting Graham Smith back, in terms of, Boucher. These guys are solid human beings. They're excellent professionals in their own right, and played at that level for years. They played for the right reasons. So in South Africa, I see a similar trend to Pakistan, trying to create stability, trying to make sure we look after players well. And maintain the pride, because they're both very proud nations. So, I think those are the basics that probably the two countries have in common that they probably both need to address.
Yeah. To finish off, let's actually, okay. One before I do the clickbait thing, just one question here from Shoaib Alvi. He said, "Tell us one funny moment with the Islamabad United team, please."
Funny moment. I must say, Colin Munro always has his birthday. Has his birthday in not the mud wrestling. Colin Munro always has his birthday in the middle of a PSL. So when he goes home, he's always got cake stuck somewhere behind his ear, deep in his eardrum, up his nose. It's very funny always to watch, because it's the second time I've been in a team with him, and he always gets the cake absolutely smashed in his face, which seems to be a tradition out there for some other reason. It's never happened to me here. So it's always particularly entertaining when someone gets a cake smashed in their face at the PSL.
Yeah, the cake thing in the Pakistani culture, that's not something that I really can elaborate on. But what I'll just say, for like, obviously I can't say what happened, but what I'll say is the night ended with like 3 guys needing to shower, and it taking about like a 4.5 hours for the staff just to clean up that room. So it, I mean, that
you had to be there.
Yeah, you had to be there. And
it was an interesting evening, and
that's also the sort of thing, like when I say like cricketer, a lot of cricketers, where even when they're like in their 30s are like overgrown children, I think that is the best possible example of that.
Cricketers know how to have fun. So I've always enjoyed a dressing room environment that's doesn't take themselves too seriously, but then when you step onto the park, you take a serious side with you. So we certainly had that at the PSL, and there were some great characters that I got to know, and were a lot of fun.
Yeah. So to finish off with the clickbaity thing, I'm just gonna okay. This I'll add to the clickbaity. Just give me one word answers. First, who was your favorite teammate in the Islamabad squad? Just one word.
Ramad Race.
Okay. Who's the best bowler you faced throughout your career?
Saeed Ajmal.
Okay. Who's the best fast bowler you faced then?
Hemmings.
Okay. And the final one, who's the best captain you've played under? You can't just say yourself.
Jacques Rudolph.
Oh, okay. That's a surprise, actually. I mean, I'd never thought of him that way. But to finish off, I'll just say this. You mentioned how hard it was. Ajmal, I think with his ban and everything, people have sort of forgotten or underrated him. But the first time I met Colin Ingram, I'll just finish off with the story. It was the 2013 Pakistan tour to South Africa. This is March of 2013. And Colin Ingram scored his second, that was his second 100 against Pakistan, right? The Abu Dhabi one came before that, right?
Yeah, second one, yeah. Against Pakistan, yeah.
Yeah, that was his second 100 against Pakistan. And right before that, Ajmal had played the test series, taken like 17 or 18 wickets, including a 10 in one of the games, I think. And the first ODI was in Bloemfontein, and everyone, because in 4 days in Test cricket, at least South Africa could leave a little bit of grass, but in ODIs the pitches were going to be dry. So everyone was, all the build up to it was, how are they going to deal with Ajmal now that they have to attack him because they can't just defend him. And in the first game, AB and Colin both scored hundreds. And I remember asking you after the in the press conference right after that, about how did you deal with Ajmal, especially considering you hadn't played him in the test games, hadn't really played him that much before. And you told me then that your strategy was just to get bat on ball and run to the other end and let AB deal with him, which I think tells you everything you need to know about Ajmal and about AB, right? You can finish off with like a story
Yes.
about AB or Stain, because those are like, both of those guys are pretty much freaks, what I come to realize.
Yeah, AB, to play with a guy like that, even when you playing, as an equal with him, he's just so much better. He can do things that other people can't, which I think is why he sort of captures everyone's imagination. So I certainly, even when I played with him, I'd stand at the other end and he would say to me, if Ajmal bowls and he bowls too slowly, I'm going to hit him over cover. Now I'm thinking, I'm trying to get bat on ball here. He's thinking I'm going to hit him against the turn over cover, which in that game you talked about, he did a few times. Which and other things that amaze me. He would just say, "Okay, if you lap, make sure you run. I'll make it every time." So he would like get me off strike in that way. So I would be able to lap and just run without even worrying because he would always make it. Um, so playing with a guy like that, I mean, he would win games on his own, and there are a number of these, seriously good players. I mean, if he opened the batting, if he batted 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7, he could play sort of every scenario, which sort of shows his genius. Just one really interesting story about him that maybe a lot of people wouldn't know, which Dale told me about when we were out at the PSL. He said that when AB scored the fastest ODI 100, what had actually happened in the morning is Riley Rousseau had been mocking him in the football warm up, and he got really cross. Um, if anyone remembers the game, Riley got 100 in that game as well, and he had batted pretty well. But obviously, AB walked out, and there were limited number of balls left in the innings, and he wanted to outdo Riley basically because they'd had this sort of rivalry, which sort of shows his competitive edge over other people. So he went out because they'd had a very feisty football warm up and scored the fastest 100 anyone had ever seen in an ODI. So that some people have that sort of extra mental edge, and he has the capability to play those sorts of innings, which we've seen plenty in the past. So I thought it was a really good story, by the way.
Yeah.
So thank you, Riley.
Yeah, I think the West Indians wouldn't like that, but I think we can finish off right there. Colin, thanks for joining us. Best of luck with the lockdown. The photos that you've been sending make me think that you might be the only blessed guy throughout this lockdown. So I won't even say best of luck, but keep.
I'm very lucky. I'm enjoying my time at home. I've got a wonderful environment that that I live in, and so lockdown's not bad for me. And I just hope that other people, stay positive and stay sharp, and hopefully stay blessed and safe.
All right, everyone. Best of luck to Colin. Stay safe, everyone, and see you next week.